So welcome everybody, good evening. Thank you all for coming to our Anamkara Thursday night meditation program. And with all my heart and with all my love, I welcome you to tonight's program. And such a gift to be able to share this time and be in your company. And especially in this time when gathering is a challenge, but being able to gather in this kind of format has really been helping people, and I've been hearing wonderful things as people attend the programs and send me emails, their appreciation of that. So I'm very glad to be able to serve in this way and to be able to welcome you to our program. Tonight's program is going to be more of a focus on sort of a reading and contemplation evening. And we do all these different practices in a sense to get simply beyond the mind so that we can come to know the truth of who and what we are and what all of this universe is about in its highest level. So the practices are really aimed at being able to sort of clear away the clouds of thoughts and feelings and all the things that go through the mind and all the ways that we identify with them, so we can come home to the highest, to the divine within, and come to know that directly. And know that in its fullness. That the Creator, all of creation, all creatures, they're one. There's only one, nothing left out. And that is the path of mystics of all traditions. And so various ways of approaching that may seem different on certain levels, but when you get to closer and closer to what the highest truth is, they all merge. Because they all merge into the one. And that one, that's the divine. That one, the essence is love. And that you find universal agreement across all the different traditions. That highest expression, the love, the boundless compassion, and the boundless wisdom. So we really practice to be able to know that and be immersed in that, so that then as we walk about our everyday life, we carry that wisdom, that knowledge with us, so we can walk that love, walk that compassion, walk that peace and equanimity into the world. So that's why we gather, and that's what the Thursday night programs are dedicated to, and that's the mission of the Anamkara Meditation Foundation. We're a nonprofit. Anamkara is an ancient Gaelic term, means friend of the soul. And so we make use of the practices that draw us deeper and deeper into that space of consciousness, that sublime divine presence that we know as soul, but we also know that the full flowering of soul, that happens as we merge in the infinite, in the divine. Again, known by many different names, but there's only one. So our practices are all aimed at bringing us home to that truth. And so we'll start this evening with the opening mantras. And the mantras are a vehicle for that highest consciousness. And a mantra is literally described as the sound form of the divine, of the infinite. And so it's a throb, a pulsation of that consciousness that takes the form of sound, so that our ordinary mind and our body can engage it, can help bring that into the world as we chant and put that vibration out into the universe, but also so that in the stillness and the silence, by becoming absorbed in that, it carries us home to the truth of who we are. It takes us beyond the mind, because mantra arises from beyond the mind and takes our consciousness back to its source, beyond the mind. So we're going to start with the opening mantras, and then for a few moments afterwards we'll just sit in the stillness to just enjoy the gift of what mantra really gives us, the openness, the spaciousness of being in that stillness and that silence. So we'll start with the opening mantras. Shri Mata Kali Devi Ki Jaya Jananambu Taganari Sevidam Kapita Jambu Palacharu Bhakshanam Umasutam Shokam Vinashakarakam Namami Vigne Ganeshaya Namaha. Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Mata Kali Devi Ki Jai. So good evening and welcome once again. So just entering that stillness, just inviting our consciousness to step back from the mind. And the mind it's like a demanding little child that wants all of our attention. Each thought, pay attention to this thought, that feeling, that sensation, that memory, this and that. It's always clamoring for our attention, our consciousness. So much so, it's been going on for so long throughout our lives that consciousness and the content of the mind have become fused. And so part of the gift of the practices is to defuse consciousness from mind. You have a mind, you're not your mind. You have consciousness. But that consciousness, when you enter into that turns out to be the fullness of our being. And that consciousness witnesses, watches, can help transform the mind. But it's separate, it's different from the mind. And as we enter the larger domain of consciousness, we become freer and freer of the confines of the mind, being bound by all the things that inhabits our history, our identities, all the roles that we play. Getting free of that, getting free of that. And so tonight as a practice, we do kind of a reading contemplation. And so it's a time you can kind of sit back and listen. And I'm going to be reading a couple of different pieces. And we were talking last week about the yamas and the niyamas, a foundation of yoga practices, the kind of the disciplines and observances that one does. And one of them was called svadhyaya, and it means self-study. And contemplation, reading, studying texts, contemplating, what do they illuminate about who we are? What do they illuminate about the nature of the mind? What do they illuminate about how did consciousness seem to be bound by a mind that is so much smaller than consciousness itself? All these things we can gain greater understanding of as we do contemplation and study and get into that. So tonight I wanted to share one of the pieces was written by my teacher, Swami Muktananda. And it was written back in 1982 when he went up to Kashmir in northern India to visit a very famous area that had to do with Kashmir Shaivism. And one of the founders of that, Abhinavagupta Acharya, and where the Shiva Sutras, this foundational text of Kashmir Shaivism, was discovered. And so Baba Muktananda went up there on kind of a pilgrimage, and I had just left India at the time, and I had been there since January of that year, and about the beginning of June headed back to the United States with my wife Karen, who went off to start her residency at a hospital, in Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, and I was then managing and running the Philadelphia ashram. But Baba is writing about this, and he's talking about life as the play of light and shadow. So last week we were talking about shadow. So here's Muktananda's, these are his words. If you were to examine your life with an outlook filled with the knowledge of humanity, you would realize that it is nothing but a play of sunlight and shadow, that it is not different from a drama or from a joyful dream. This play of creation is filled with unique colors and manifestations, like clouds in the autumn sky, which keep forming and dissolving, and in your life, different colors shine and sparkle for a while, and then they fade away. But you never know why they come and go, or for how long they have been arising and subsiding. You divide your life into the waking and dream states, but it is all one state. It is ever new, neither true nor false. What was real yesterday is unreal today. What is real now will be unreal tomorrow, because tomorrow it will no longer exist. Life is the extraordinary play of the actor of the universe, the self, the divine. It is mystery, a story told by a grandmother, real yet without foundation. And in this world, day becomes night, night becomes day. Joy turns into grief, grief turns into joy. Virtue turns into sin, sin turns into virtue. Birth becomes death, death becomes birth. Success becomes failure, failure becomes success. One person's victory is another's defeat. One person's interest is another person's indifference. One person's religion is another person's irreligion. The world constantly changes. This life unfolds from a formless source. It arises from the ocean of bliss, from the joyous swing of love, and merges back into the space of consciousness. When a wise being understands the ways of the world, the sport and play of destiny, the continuity of the waking and dream states, and the light of the knowledge of Bhairava, that's a name for the ultimate reality, like the Godhead. That wise being becomes filled with the extraordinary mystery of the formless and feels lighthearted with this simple awareness. And then he naturally takes delight in the game. With great bliss he swims in the sweet current of love. He lives in a natural way. His is a perfect life in which there is no basis for worry, no reason to be brave, no desire for support, no binding limitation, no friend to be attached to, no foe to hate. All that remains for him everywhere is the infinite flame of the self. In him, the knowledge of the play of illusion and the understanding of the great divine self are born. Everything emerges from that self, from Bhairava. To know this is to attain the ever-scintillating knowledge of the infinite. See, when you recognize the infinite, the self within, an inner smile blossoms, and the peacock of your mind dances in the fountain of love of life. You realize that life depends on love, and the strings of the vina of your heart are strummed. Then you travel your life's journey very easily and with great joy, as a guest, as a sightseer, as a witness. For you, there is no burden, there is no weeping, there is no boredom. Instead, you sing and dance lightheartedly with great simplicity. You find that universal consciousness, the center of the universe, within you. This untouched consciousness is the formless witness, is indestructible joy. It is a drop of nectar. It is the inner heart. It is the shimmering, clear, and beautiful blue light. It is the bliss of the self, which arises independently within. It is the inner pulsation. Which path will lead you to that state? From what viewpoint can you see it? Well, look at your life. Look at that inner effulgence. Watch the colors as they arise and disperse. Watch the clouds which come and go within the space of your mind. Look at the space between two thoughts. Look at the patterns of sun and shadow which form and dissolve. See everything as a vast picture composed of countless vessels filled with strange and colorful things, each more fascinating and astounding than the last. What is all this? It is nothing but the dance of your own true self, the supreme actor. Everything has come from him. All faces are his. All attributes are his. A woman belongs to him and a man belongs to him. Attachment and aversion, good and evil, grief and joy, religion and irreligion, all belong to him. Everything arises from him. It is all a play of the self. What will you attain in this manifold and unique play? You will attain your own true nature, your own true face. You will perceive the drama of your own life as if it were someone else's life. You will perceive the conscious self. In the present state, you get angry, you laugh, you weep, you become disappointed. Sometimes you are depressed and sometimes you are elated. And in this way, you flow in the current of life. But when you understand that this entire play is a dream, when you attain knowledge, all these things will depart. What else will leave you? Your mask, your facade, your dry and joyless smile, your pride and honor, your pretense, your ego, your bigotry, your wrong understanding that claims to be the truth. All these things will go. The knot of the heart, which makes you imagine that consciousness is limited to matter, will be released. The veil of ignorance, which forms the wall between you and God, will be rent. You will glimpse the light of the knowledge of the divine within. Then you will experience the lightheartedness of consciousness, the thought-free state, the independent freshness of the self, which does not come from eating or drinking, giving or taking. You will experience immeasurable ecstasy, continual inner joy. The tender, sweet, enchanting notes of the divine flute will sound from within. As the inner wisdom of the infinite arises, a center of sublime consciousness, the witness will form inside you, watching everything but remaining apart from it. You will experience that conscious witness in your heart, the dwelling place of the joy of the divine, the miracles of your own divine self. The knowledge of the self will arise, revealing unique manifestations and infinite colors. So you've been searching for this inner light of consciousness, and when you obtain it, it will become free from all the imaginary clouds, from the illusory patterns of the sun and shadow. In everything, in all forms, you will see only the different expressions of your own face. You will come to know that everything is the play of your own mind. No matter where you look, you will see that play. The knowledge I am everything will arise, and you will see the same self shining within you and within everyone. The inner knower will come to recognize that he's being reflected everywhere, and that his own reflection is what is constantly passing before him. See, wherever you look, you will see your own self. Then you will begin to wonder, do I exist in the world, or does the world exist within me? One who has experienced his own self has solved the mystery of the game of life. See, behind everything, there is great love. There is consciousness. There is the Guru's compassion. This is the extraordinary yet subtle desire to be united with the self. You will be awakened from within. Can you be awakened? Can you drink the nectar of your own love? With the knowledge of that, the knowledge of the infinite, can you recognize your own self in all the countless forms? when it arises within you, your life will truly be alive. Then through the inner understanding, through the light of Chit Kundalini, through the knowledge of the infinite, the seed movement of the self will sprout. You will see your own self in everyone. You will attain what you have already attained. You will find what you have never lost. In you, of you, for you, your own Swami Muktananda. The play of light and shadow is all we're seeing. And it all emerges out of that divine self, the infinite, the Godhead, known by so many names, but beyond all names. Known as Brahman, the Absolute, known as Shiva, the Auspicious One, known as Allah, known as God, known as the Beloved. All so many names for this one who's beyond all names. The one who is your true self. The one who's looking through your eyes right now. That consciousness, that's the divine self. Seeing your divine self reflected everywhere, that's the unfolding of the consciousness that's inherent to who we are, that's inherent to all the universe. So the practices and the path of mystics has always been to come to that, to know that, to see it everywhere, to go beyond all differences. The mind creates differences of philosophy and religion and practice. That all dissolves. That all dissolves in the divine embrace. Then we're just present. Then that love that has dissolved all separation, dissolved all boundaries, dissolved all differences, that's who we are. It's truly what we're here to know. This learning lab that we call life, that we move through lifetime after lifetime, gathering wisdom and hopefully learning the lessons of our karma, the consequences of our own actions. So we finally see that, oh, there's a way to be free of that. There's a way to go to the source of love. Whenever love arises, does it arise from outside? No, it always arises from within. When compassion arises, can that be injected from outside? No, it arises from within. Wisdom, the boundless wisdom of the infinite, that's you. The source of all scriptures, that's you. It may come through a person, but the source, that's the divine. So our practices are all about coming home to that. Whether we're singing, chanting, repeating mantras, saying prayers, singing hymns, whatever it might be, these are all ways of being able to engage our energies, our devotion, our mind, our body, to have it all be one-pointed and headed towards merger in the infinite. Going home to the truth of who you are. So then you can see that spread out before you in all reality, in every eye that you look. When you look through that eye of wisdom, all you'll see is God. What else is there? So studying, contemplating, meditating, coming home to the self, coming home to the absolute, that gets us clear of the mind and all that it creates that we've become so fused with, so bound by, so identified with. We can step back, that boundless witness, that infinite self, Brahman, the absolute, the Godhead. That's the way of all mystics. And the mystics are the ones who came to know it directly. That capacity is innate to everyone. And in the yogic system, it's given the name of Kundalini Shakti, the power of consciousness to know the infinite as oneself. It's the power of grace. It's the power of the Holy Spirit. It's known in every tradition. Different names again. Same power of the divine to reveal and know all that is. That's what we're here for. Now in this reading, this is from the Tejobindu Upanishad. And the Tejobindu Upanishad was written down roughly 21, 22, maybe 2,300 years ago. So back around the time of Buddha and one of the later Upanishads, but the Upanishads were an oral tradition before they got written down. And the word Upanishad, which is the heart of Vedanta, of the Vedas, the word Upanishad itself means sitting nearby. So it was what was written down because the wisdom was given by sitting near an enlightened being and just receiving the teachings and discussing them and being in their presence and just dissolving into the stillness of meditation by sitting nearby. Sitting nearby. The Upanishads are all then a recording of an oral tradition that had been passed down for centuries until it got written down. And so this is one of the short Upanishads. And this is actually from a translation that was of the Upanishads by Eknath Easwaren. And he's a wonderful translator. I've mentioned him before as a translator of the Dhammapada in the Buddhist tradition, the words of the Buddha. He's also done a wonderful translation of the Upanishads, so Eknath Easwaren. And so the Tejobindu Upanishad. So again, just listen, just take this in. This is a kind of a meditation in itself. So it says, let us meditate on the shining self, changeless, underlying the world of change, and realized in the heart of samadhi. Hard to reach is this supreme goal of life, hard to describe, harder to abide in. They alone attain samadhi who have mastered their senses and are free from anger, free from self-will and from likes and dislikes, and without selfish bonds to people or things. They alone attain samadhi who are prepared to face the challenge and the challenges and more challenges that come in the 3 stages of meditation. And under an illumined teacher's guidance, they become united with the Lord of Love. The Lord of Love, who's present everywhere. And through the 3 qualities that emanate from him that create the universe, but he is infinite and invisible. Though all the galaxies emerge from him, he is without form and unconditioned. To be united with the Lord of Love is to be freed from all conditioning. This is the state of self-realization, far beyond the reach of any words or thoughts. To be united with the Lord of Love, imperishable, changeless, beyond cause and effect, is to find infinite joy. Brahman, the Absolute, is beyond all duality, beyond the reach of thinker and thought. So let us meditate on the shining self, the ultimate reality, who is realized by sages in samadhi. The Absolute cannot be realized by those who are subject to greed or fear and anger. The Absolute cannot be realized by those who are subject to the pride of name and fame or the vanity of scholarship. The Absolute cannot be realized by those who are enmeshed in life's duality. But to all those who pierce this duality, whose hearts are given to the Lord of Love, he gives himself through his infinite grace. He gives himself totally through his infinite grace. That's how meditation unfolds. It unfolds through, there's the component that's our self-effort. It's that boundless grace that finally dissolves all the differences. And it takes an act of grace, because what created the differences? What created our illusion of being bound by mind and thought and body? The divine created that. Only the divine in the end can finally release us from that. The divine, our own self. The innate power of consciousness, the Holy Spirit, the Shakti Kundalini, indwelling to all. That's what carries us. But we have to do the effort of getting ourselves free of those patterns of anger and attachment, of being deluded by being identified with one thing after another, so that when we sit, we let it all go. We just let it all go. What are we letting go into? Well, for the mind, to begin with, it seems like just a dark space. That's why some people go, oh, it's so boring in there. That's one of the challenges. We have to get past that. That's the mind and its sort of value system, its cravings for novelty and for stimulus. We move through that. We go past that to enter the space of the heart, the space of that boundless love, that's scintillating, that's ecstatic, that rapturous state. That's what we go for. And it's so hard to see in this world where that is, because most of what our culture holds up as models of what is to be attained are the superficialities of possessions and fame and wealth and this and that. Where's the rapture? Where's the divine embrace? Where's the letting go into the bliss of the infinite? We're too accustomed to that being sequestered in a monk's cell 500 years ago, safely tucked away. That's where religion has it. Not here and now, but that's where it is. It's always found here and now. And here and now. And here and now. Always present. Always in this moment. So the practices are drawing us back to the fullness of being present in the moment. Because it's in this moment that the fullness, the infinitude, the light, the love, the boundless nature of our infinite divine self is unfolding. So we do the practices to be able to come to rest in that. The doors have been flung open. God's saying, come, come. I've been waiting for you for so long. What are you doing? Aren't you tired of playing out in the sandbox? Come home. I've prepared a wonderful banquet for you. So many ways the divine invites us to let go of the ordinary world and to come home to the truth of who we are, so that we can walk that love, see that everywhere, see the unfolding of creation in its perfection as the divine unfolding the body of its own self. That creation is the body of the infinite, taking form in the moment. Oh my God, what could be more delightful? To see that and know that's you. That's why we practice. That's why we gather, to support each other in that practice and in holding that vision in a world that's blind. We hold that vision, the vision of the truth, the vision of the boundless love, the vision, the experience of the compassion that embraces everyone. So now we're going to meditate for a bit. First we're going to chant the mahamantra, the great mantra, Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. It means I bow to the auspicious one. I bow to the divine within. But more than the meaning of that, it's a throb, a pulsation of that consciousness itself. And so it carries with it the power to know that directly, the power to awaken that inner power of our own sublime self, this Kundalini Shakti, so that the veil that seems so thick thins, melts, disappears. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. We'll be chanting that. It's a slow, meditative chant. And built in a sense, to the chant is actually another practice, because chanting is a practice in itself. It's also a form of swadhyaya, of self-study. But here it's a mantra, as a throb of your own infinite being. You become absorbed in that, and you come to know the self. But the practice, you're also sitting. So there's asana, this posture. You're also regulating your breath as you chant. And so when you chant, there's the exhalation as you're chanting Om in the chant, and then you inhale. And then there's the exhalation for Nama. And then there's an inhalation. And then there's the chant of the Shivaya. Well, that regulation of the breath is called pranayama in the yogic tradition. And it's actually been shown through scientific research to have a profound impact on our physiology, our heart, our autonomic nervous system, our immune system, our brain. It's really quite stunning just to come into that kind of paced breathing that goes with the chanting practice. So chant this for a while and just become lost in that. Just ride the waves of the chant. And then afterwards we'll just sit in that stillness, in that silence. The mantra arises out of stillness and dissolves into stillness. Arises out of stillness, dissolves into stillness. Just as the breath arises out of stillness, dissolves into stillness. Bob used to always talk about, notice that still point between the breaths. The breath comes in and becomes still for an instant before it turns and goes out. Goes out, becomes still for an instant before it turns and comes back in. That stillness. There is the infinite. There is the space that's free of mind. In the same way that Baba talked about the space between two thoughts. Thoughts arise out of stillness, dissolve into stillness. There's a moment of stillness, quiet between the thoughts. In that, you can directly know the witness, the seer who's never seen, the hearer who's never heard, the one, the divine, the living presence of the infinite within. So we'll chant this mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. It's really like a love song. It's a throb of love that was given birth to by the infinite as a way of embracing us and carrying us back to our own divine self. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. So we'll chant now for a few minutes and then just sit in the stillness. At the end of meditation, we'll ring a gong, chant a few rounds, and close the program for the evening. So now, immersing ourselves in the self through Om Namah Shivaya. Shri Mata Kali Devi Ki Jai. Shiva comes in with Om Namah Shivaya. The breath comes out with Om Namah Shivaya. An awareness, the living presence of the divine within. Watches with the awareness of I am that. I am that. All that is. I am that. All the love. I am that. All the wisdom. I am that. All that. Shiva. 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 Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Resting in that. You rest in your own sublime self. So we end with this prayer, and may all our practices truly benefit everyone, and may all beings know complete freedom from suffering. Namaste. So coming home to the divine within, the Lord of love, that living flame of love is present in every being's heart. It's present fully ablaze right now in your heart. Coming home to that, being aware of that, cultivating the awareness of that. So the mind is always practicing being identified with this thought, this feeling. You know, sometimes it's happy, sometimes it's sad, sometimes it's angry, sometimes it's irritable, but it's always going, I am that, I'm this, I'm that, I'm feeling this, I'm that. That's what we keep letting go of. That's how we come home to discovering that there's this flame of love, the living flame of the divine that's fully present within. That can illuminate our everyday life. That's what illuminates the mind. When you're sitting and your eyes closed, eyes open, what's illuminating those thoughts? What's illuminating the sensations, the feelings, the things passing through that inner sky of awareness? It's that light of the infinite. It's that light of consciousness. That's the witness. That's the seer who's never seen. So that's what you come home to. That's what you bring your attention back to over and over again. So do that as a practice. Do that as a practice. Being aware in each moment, or as many moments as you can string together. Where's that light of love now? How do I perceive and experience that light of love now? We're used to experiencing all the other stuff going through the mind. We know sort of from neurophysiology that anything we do repeatedly is a practice to the mind and the brain. So we're cultivating being identified with limitations, moment by moment. From the moment you wake up and start to hit your to-do list and the this and that and identified with that, you're practicing being contracted. You're practicing being identified with limitation. So we have to break that practice and at least intersperse it with the awareness of I am that. But that is love. I am that love. I am that living presence. I am the divine. What I'm seeing is the divine. What I'm seeing is the unfolding of the divine's creation, created out of love. created out of infinite delight. We have to cultivate the mind, letting go of these other things, so we can start to participate in that living presence and its full, loving awareness. Keep coming back to that. And coming back can be by coming back to the mantra, the Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Keeping the mind immersed in that throughout the day. Om Namah Shivaya. It's a throb of the infinite. It's a reminder. Here I am. I'm right here. I'm this sound. I'm this mantra. I'm this light. I'm luminous. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Come home to that. Come home to yourself. And then walk that wisdom, walk that love, walk that compassion, walk that patience into the world, into everyday life. That's what we're given to do. What a blessing that we have this vehicle that can carry the infinite, the divine, into everyday life. Let's use it for that. That's our highest dharma. So carry that with you throughout the week, day and night, as much as you can. Come back to that. And then we'll be coming back next week. But I want to thank you all for coming this evening and bringing the fullness of your commitments to practice, the depth of your wisdom, your love, that you walk into the world in your life, each in its own way, coming home to that and bringing that in. And so thank you for coming this evening. Thank you for the many ways that you support Anamkara by sharing what we are offering through videos, through the e-newsletter. It's great to see when people comment on the videos and like them. I've been informed that that also helps make it more accessible to people, so thank you for doing that. And we'll be back next week. And next week is chanting night, so next week we'll get more involved and absorbed in chants and some of the fast chants that can help sweep away the cobwebs from the mind and open us to that light of love that's emanating from within. So again, with all my heart and with all my love, thank you for coming this evening. I look forward to seeing you next week.